mission to create and deliver wellness training and comprehensive sex ed to schools, to provide digital tools and resources to survivors of sexual trauma and wellness training to all participants, and to offer live events and creative programs that will heal and empower through the magic of psalm, or voice, sound, song, and hymn. Psalm is a noun, a sacred song, sound, hymn, or a poem.
How's it been? It's good? All right, guys. So, yes, thank you for the introduction. My earlier background was I was gang involved. I was initiated into my neighborhood at the age of 12. And from there, it just propelled a life of criminality, antisocial behavior, and emotionless. I wasn't taught, right? That wasn't really cultivated within the neighborhood or within the gang culture to exfoliate emotions. So that cascaded my world to dive into a world of academia and research, specifically working in restorative practices. So that led me to develop and working around developing my own theory on right brain restorative practices, which is an implicit self-centered modality that addresses the entire domains of the individual, of the student. So I'll give you one example. Young male, young boy going through a restorative conference. How can we really forgive when forgiveness hasn't been instilled in us? How can we forgive someone else when life has been so brutal to us? So it's very crucial going through these restorative practices and going through a restorative continuum, exposing our youth through these epigenetic social experiences where they'll be able to bifurcate these negative mindsets, identify their emotions within. Because yes, it's very lonely as a young male here in Los Angeles. It's difficult. What do I say? A lot of my boys, when I work with a lot of my boys, I'm like, hey man, I'm really happy to see you. I love seeing you here today. Oh, Mr. Alvarez, that was homo. So that was the language, that's the language they used. This is homo, this is gay. And I don't think it's very important that I correct that language and we say, no, this is not that. This is just me being real with you and another male showing this emotion. So the vector, a lot of my success has been running emotionally intelligent restorative conferences where we engage the community, not the entire gamut of the crime. We bring in the victim, the offenders, when ready, and have a restorative conversation. And when we're having these conversations, we're opening up, we're becoming vulnerable. And by default, right, being empathic, right, is having boundaries. Because when something happens to us, those boundaries are wiped away. And a life without boundaries is a very sad life. It's like a house without doors or windows. Anyone could come in. So it's crucial, us as professionals, to investigate and to sit down with these younger girls, younger boys, and identify these virtues, auxiliate them, and fertilize them so they could grow. So through that, I'm very happy to team up with the Magic of Psalm because they come with the expertise. They come with comprehensive sex education. My background as a gang expert and working with a lot of Los Angeles gangs allows me to go in there and allow them to do their work. I have a license to operate in different gang neighborhoods, and that's done by me being real with them, me crying with them seeing who I am. So through that, we hopefully are gonna luck out and we're gonna infiltrate the community at abroad and really demonstrate what we could do with the magic of song and the magic of restorative practices. So who here works with youth? If we could just show a hand. Okay, so this conversation is pretty relevant to everyone there. But if you have a brain, right, if you're talking to another person that has that brain, it's relevant to them. It's emotion to emotion. At the end of the day, we know that that's the vector of success. Most of the therapeutic literature around psychotherapy and the efficacy of psychotherapy states that the relationship is what moves across. So we must do that. Restorative justice is this criminal justice term that's used very broad. Oh yeah, we're gonna do a restorative justice. Restorative justice is totally different. I was a restorative practitioner when I was reformed as a gang member, and the only prerequisite to be a restorative practitioner is to have a heart, to feel, to not be razor-active with the consequences, to understand what's happening beneath conscious awareness, what's being said without the words. I think that's the only prerequisites that we need as human beings, correct? And another real quick detail and point, working with Los Angeles gang-embedded youth, there's strong attachment issues. So we know that, in order for you to have this security in life and be confident, we must have strong attachment. An attachment with a caregiver or attachment with a pro-social figure. A lot of these individuals don't have that. And what the research is stating, Haynes Kohut stated, in order to build empathy, this must occur. And if attachment trauma is present, the mechanisms of building empathy are hindered and are compromised. So by default, we're working with individuals, with youth that don't have that organism fully developed. So it's crucial work, it's important. We need more people that are gonna be able to identify partners that are not going to be scared, advertise what they have going on. I work with a lot of schools, but a lot of universities, but a lot of universities lack the insight to go in the community and ask the questions to these very marginalized individuals. It's scary, right? It's extremely easy to forgive and to sit down in a restorative conference when there's an attractive person or that person is not that ugly. It's really difficult to forgive when that person is heinous and he's a gang member and he has tattoos all over his face. It's easy to condemn. So we must, as practitioners, exfoliate our heart, understand who we are, and at the end of the day, we're here together. So with that, I could take any questions, comments, or remarks. And we could just have a conversation through that. Not all at once, guys, not all at once.
So how do you see restorative justice? Do you see this like taking the place of the criminal justice system, or do you see them working together? And how do you see restorative justice really taking the next step?
Thank you for that. Thank you for that question. And with restorative practices or restorative justice, it mandates accountability from the system. And a lot of the times we're not seeking this buy-in from the system because, we'll hide from first, second, 3 strikes, and we'll fall through our judicial system. So through restorative justice, we're giving the victim the voice. 1970, these laws passed where victim laws, where you could be in front of the court and state to your perpetrator what has happened. Through a restorative conference, the perpetrator needs to sit in that conference, see what the effects of this person's behavior has caused to the victim, and that right there is what research is stating. Alan Shore, based on an epigenetic social experience, is moving that individual towards complexity. So fundamentally, it's going to transform our system because we're addressing those harder problems that we usually ignore. Absolutely.
Just how do you see perpetrators responding? How receptive are they to being in these programs?
Well, of course, they have to be willing. With restorative justice and restorative practices, both parties need to be willing. Because again, re-victimizing the victim, exposing them in an environment where it's not in tune, right? And expose them to the offender again can be very detrimental. So these restorative conferences, specifically my approach in right brain restorative practice, is very in tune to that process, to the victim's social emotional intelligence, somatic manifestations. Everything is considered through these conferences. A pre-conversation could take up to 3 to 4 weeks. It's not something that's rushed quick, and we're in collaboration with mental health practitioners, MFTs, to really help us address every avenue of that situation. Yeah. Any more questions? Thank you. All right, so we have one more here.
So this person changed your life. I think it would be great to hear a story of a person that you've worked with, what happened for them.
I work with so many. I have one, Mr. Lorenzo. I could use his name. I worked for GRID. I did the pilot for gang reduction, youth development here for the city of LA, and we did the pilot. Because of my expertise working with gangs, I was working with this neighborhood local gang, Florencia 13. And this individual had a, Mexican-American individual, and in this gang is a very black and brown gang. So there's boundaries. So my connection with this individual was beneath just me finding out, like, wow, you're gang embedded. Wow, what's going on? It was me sitting with him, resonating, and just walking with him. A lot of the time, what we do with these individuals is nothing but just listen and being present. And through that, I was able to exfoliate emotions and virtues of this boy that evolved into a family man. He got out of the neighborhood, the gang, stopped gang banging, and now he's living a pro-social world. And fundamentally just started with just walking with him, not being in this non-judgmental place. We have so many, we brought our high school where two of these lovely ladies work, so we could give them a hand of. We brought our high school from a 22% suspension rate, which that's like 14,000 hours loss. In 2 years of implementing restorative practices, and this is data for you, we're at a 0.2%. 0.2%. So, yeah, that's really good. And that's not having your hot rooms and you're ignoring, that's doing the work. And in the city of LA, and a lot of our kids come from a very black and brown neighborhood where the jungles are at, so we all know that it's very historically racial. So if we were able to achieve that success in that community, just imagine what we could do if everyone's in sync.
All right, so as part of the magic of Psalm, I love that you're being part of this as well, because one of my fears is that the teachers themselves aren't going to have that same passion that we have ourselves to go into the classroom and speak of this. And so I thank you for that, because it's like we need the same passion for that. You know, if they just don't listen, you know, if they don't make themselves available to really be there for them, to talk about sex or whatever challenge that they're facing, they're not going to change, you know, they're not going to have that support. So thank you.
You're very welcome. And with just my history on our teachers that we work with, my experience with teachers, if they're not restorative, no one has been restorative to them. So that's where it starts. How can you become restorative with the person who is not that restorative? That's where the real homework is at. And once they go through that experience, they cannot go back. Like, who's tried meditation, right? And it's given us some health benefits. I cannot not just stop meditating. So once you know that it's going to help you, right, and it's a different moment, then you're going to embark. Our first emotion at 13 months or 13 weeks is to give our mother joy or our caregiver joy as a baby. So something happens, right? Through our course of our life, that joy is wiped away. So just know that if teachers have that heart, everyone has that heart. So it's how we exfoliate it.